now? And what losses will I incur if the healthcare legislation passes? So really powerful stuff here. Look at it together. There's three things that happen when loss aversion and commitment come together. The first one is when you're in that state, when you're facing a huge loss, and you're already committed to a certain way of doing things, you stop thinking rationally. What do I mean by rationally? You stop thinking logically and intellectually. It becomes a fear response. It becomes an emotional response. Think of Azantan just taking off prematurely. Think of the $20 bill auction players of just keep bidding and bidding and bidding. It's almost like we revert back to acting primitive. It generates a fear response. So what we do is we go to extremes. Either we say, we're going to do everything we can to dig ourselves out of the hole, or we're just going to keep fighting it and fighting it until we win. And we take drastic measures. We do things that normally we wouldn't do just to escape that fate. But we don't realize that we're doing it, right? It's not like those people are saying, oh, I'm going to take drastic measures now. But just that we don't realize how powerful those undercurrents, psychological undercurrents are of when loss aversion and commitment come together, without realizing it, we take drastic measures. So I'm going to talk about something else and then connect it back to this healthcare debate as well and the loss aversion stuff. So let's talk about another experiment. I told you about the $20 experiment. This is another experiment that's also really interesting. Imagine you're in a room, and you're in a room by yourself, and an experimenter comes to you and tells you, we're going to give you $10. And you can do whatever you want with this $10, but of course there's a little catch. In the other room, there's somebody else that you don't know. And you've never seen them, and they don't know who you are either. And we'll keep your identities private. Nobody will ever know who that other person is. And you get to decide how much of that $10 bill you want to give to the other person. So what sort of split do you want to do? Do you want to do an even split, like $5 and $5? Do you want to split it $8, $2? Whatever you want, you can do it. Now, the thing is that we're going to take your offer, and we're going to go to the other person in the other room, and if they accept the terms of your offer, everything is great. You get your part, and they get their part. But if they reject the offer, nobody gets anything. Nobody gets any money. And they can't negotiate with you. They can't make any changes. They either say yes or they say no. So think about it. If that was your task, to split a $10 bill, how would you split it? If you're like most people, you would keep $5 for yourself, and you'll give $5 to the other person. And indeed, if that's the offer that you were going to give, then the other the people who received $5 offers always said yes, because it seemed fair, it seemed even. But some people decided they want to get a little tricky. They said, I'll keep $7 for myself, and I'll give you $3. Or I'll keep $8, and I'll give you $2. Now think of yourself in the other room. Somebody has come to you and said, the other person decided to split it, so you get $3 or you get $2, whichever way, but it's not a fair split. Do you accept it or do you reject it? If you accept it, you get that money and you get to walk away. If you reject it, you don't get anything, but they don't get anything either. The vast majority of people said no. Which, from a purely economic perspective, doesn't make sense, right? Some money is better than no money. But that doesn't take into account the power of fairness. That when we feel that something is not fair, we react against it. We stand up against it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all, but it's a very powerful thing. The thing that's interesting is at what cost? At what cost am I going to walk away? So they tried it with a $100 bill. Said, well, maybe $10 wasn't, maybe people don't care about $2, $3. $100, same thing. People didn't care. $30, $40, they walk away from it. So they said, well, maybe it's an American thing. Let's go do it in other countries. Every single country, the same thing, except for one country. And it wasn't even necessarily country, it was more like a tribe. It was, wrong slide. The Mashiguenga tribe in the Amazons. And they did not have a lot of contact with Westerners. And when they did the experiment with them, almost all of the people offered very little to the other person, and all the recipients accepted the offer. And then they interviewed them, they're like, well, what's going on here? And they said, well, they got lucky, so they took the money, and that was okay. And that's how their culture was built. Now let's go back to healthcare. I think if the Democrats would have come out and said, the reason we want to do healthcare is not because it's going to save us money, because even today I saw President Obama talk in a town hall meeting, and he said, well, we can save $1 trillion if we pass healthcare reform. But I don't think people listen to that as much. It's like, okay, well, $1 trillion, that's too much, too large of an amount anyways. But if we said, you know what, it's not fair. It's not fair, because Lincoln started something, and he started civil rights, and he started fighting for people, and then LBJ came, and he did the Great Society, and that's what's missing. That's the missing part here. It's not fair that people can go to the dentist and need to have their teeth pulled out instead of getting dental care because they don't have insurance. It's not fair that the mortality rate in the United States is higher than the mortality rate in South Korea. That's not fair. We deserve better. I think that would actually make a point, because fairness is really important to us. And when fairness comes up, it touches a chord with us. Even as kids, kids come up in the playground and they say, well, that wasn't fair. And it sticks with us. Even as adults, when we hear that something's not fair, we say, well, let's try to fix it. They did a study with employees, and some employees who got raises and some employees who didn't get raises. Obviously, people who didn't get the raise were more upset than the people who got the raise. But if the boss came to the people who didn't get the raise and said, I know that it doesn't sound fair. I know that it's a process that you don't like, and talked with them and explained to them and worked with them through that, then those employees were a lot happier than the ones who were not giving a reason. That in our lives, when something happens to us and we feel like we got gypped and we feel like we were not treated fairly, it takes a toll on us. And the opposite, when fairness comes up, it's something that we really go forward and try to make a change. So one of the things that is coming up here, and it's something that kind of like an underlying cause here, is that it's really difficult for all of us, even for really intelligent people, to stick with ambiguity. We like to make decisions. We like to say, should I go in this course or should I do that course? Should I follow this direction or should I follow that direction? What do I think of this political party? What do I think of this person? And we don't like having ambiguity. We like to know exactly what's going on. But the problem is that sometimes we make decisions too fast, not based on intellectual reasons, but more so on the emotional reasons. Now, nothing against emotions. I'm a psychologist, so I'm all about emotions. That's great. But I wouldn't want to make an important decision just based on emotionality. Story of Joshua Bell. He's a violinist, a really talented violinist. The violin is worth several $1 million. And people pay really good money to see him perform. So he did a little bit of an experiment. He went to Washington, D.C., went to the subway, same Joshua, same expensive violin, different outfit. And he said, what if I play whatever I play in the concert? How will people react? And over 1,000 people passed him by, and almost nobody stopped. Almost nobody stopped. There was only a few kids who stopped, and the parents were kind of hanging around when the kids looked at this performer, and there was one woman who recognized them, and she said, "Whoa, what's going on?" But aside from those people just kept walking by. And if you see the video, they're just kind of walking like that. They're not even paying any attention. Now, the music that he was playing was really good music. Now, and you can argue, well, maybe they were late for work, or maybe they're just not into classical music. But you think out of those 1,000 people, at least one person, or 10 people, or even maybe 50 people would have stopped to listen to him. But the interesting thing is that it's not easy for us to make complicated decisions. We like simplicity. We see this guy in a baseball cap playing a violin. We figure, street musician, it's not worth my time. And where it gets really interesting is job interviews. So all of you have been on a job interview, and some of you may have even given job interviews. Same thing as the Joshua Bell story. You have somebody in front of you, you try to figure out really quickly whether this person is just a street musician or whether they have real talent. And here are the top 10 questions that people get asked during a job interview. And I talked to a researcher, a psychologist, who actually studies this stuff. And he said, you know what, out of all those questions, they all stink. Scientifically, they give you very little information about the candidate. But there's one question that's better than all the rest. So if you had to look at all those questions, and you had to ask the person just one question, the candidate one question, what question would you pick? So kind of look it over for a little bit, and then I'll tell you the reasoning behind it and tell you which one is the best one. So I'm going to start eliminating them. Let's focus on these three. Why should I hire you? What do you consider to be your greatest strengths and weaknesses? How would you describe yourself? The problem with those questions, those are kind of like the Barbara Walters questions. Those are the, I'd like to get to know you better questions. Why should I hire you? Well, everywhere else I went, they didn't give me a job interview, and I really need to pay the bill, so here I am. What do you consider to be your greatest strengths and weaknesses? Sometime, if I have to come to work on Monday, and I've been drinking the night before, I might be a little hungover. I guess that's a weakness. I get into fights with people that I don't like. If there was money left somewhere and I knew I would get away with it, maybe I'd consider taking it. Nobody's going to answer it like that. But we think, if I ask them, maybe I'll get to see their real selves. And people give canned answers, right? What's your greatest weakness? I work too much. I try too hard. Sometimes I stay at work so long that I should maybe go out some more. And then the employer gets impressed, but you're never going to get the real deal. Let's look at these questions. What do you see yourself doing 5 years from now? 5 years from now, I don't even know what I'm going to be doing 5 weeks from now. Right? How many of us really know for sure what we're going to do 5 years from now? And the problem with these set of questions is they ask you to predict the future. And the right answer is, 5 years from now, I'm gonna be working my way through this company and maybe taking a management role. Well, you don't know that, and they don't know that, but that's what they want to hear. What do you really want to do in life? I don't know, join the circus? We can't say that. We have to say something intelligent, but it's all cooked. It's all cooked, but it's because people believe, managers, the people who are on the hiring end, they want to believe that they're doing a good job. They want to believe that somehow I can understand this person because I'm not comfortable with ambiguity. Then the last set asks you to reflect on the past and be an historian. What college subject did you like the best and the least? Well, I really liked PE, and I don't really remember all the rest. Why did you decide to seek a job with our company? I saw the advertisement, and I'm running behind on rent, so thought, why not apply? And why did you leave the last job? Well, I got fired. You can't really be honest. You have to come up with canned answers, but somehow we believe in those, because remember, those are the 10 most frequently asked job interview questions. And out of curiosity, I wonder how many of you picked number 6, which is the only one that's left, as the best question. And the reason that that one is the best is at least you've done some amount of work to show that you actually care about this job. You actually went on the website, or you Googled them, or you did something. What are the best questions for the job? Those are the ones that ask you to be really specific about the qualities. So for example, if I'm going to be an engineer, give me an engineering problem and ask me to solve it. Or if you want me to be a manager, give me a situation and see how I would react to it. Don't try to kind of look inside my soul to see what's really going on, but try to be really specific and direct with what you're trying to see. And I think that goes back to the theme of what I'm talking about tonight, is that we try to diagnose important elements, important decisions, in ways that are not really the best way. Healthcare is such a complicated matter, and it's such an important matter, and we should not have to make a decision just based on emotionality. But as human beings, we don't like ambiguity, we don't like complexity, we like simplicity, which is fun, but it can also get us into a lot of trouble. So thank you very much for listening to my PowerPoint, and I think Sharon is going to join me shortly. And I definitely want to take questions from you. If there's anything at all that I talked about that raises a question or you had a point, that would be great as well. And I think Sharon might be asking me some questions as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was wonderful.
Thanks, Sharon.
All right. So, well, maybe yes, maybe no. We'll think about that for 30 seconds.
You said on the microphone.
And if she sits on the microphone, that could be bad. All right. You have microphones on both sides of the aisles, on the top and the bottom. Please walk up to ask your questions for Ram.
I think maybe.
Meantime, please come up and ask your questions. You don't have to be.
I have a question. Okay, I really agreed with most of your examples about the commitment and then the fear of losing, but I don't really agree with the point about the Democrats and the healthcare debate. And I think the reason why I don't is because I feel like they were really they were on the track to win it the entire time until, of course, Scott Brown was elected in Massachusetts. So in all the other examples, it was like, okay, they started out, they thought it was going to go well, and then things just started happening that started causing their situation to get worse and worse and worse, and they didn't want to back out. But I feel like in that situation, it was like, okay, everything's going great, and then crash and burn, which I think is kind of different. Like there wasn't a, oh my God, I have to stay in it even though it's going downhill. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
No, what's your question exactly, though?
It was more of a point of discretion, I guess.
I think two things that I want to raise. First of all, the point of the presentation was really about questioning and not just taking things and saying, okay, well, here it is, and not just looking for the simple answer. And by virtue of a 40-minute presentation, I try to truncate it. So for you to come here and to say, you know what, I agree with this, but I'm not sure about that, I think that's a great quality. I think that's the whole point, and that's what I think this thing is falling off. Yeah. I think this is what I'd love for you guys to do even more, is to kind of keep questioning. I think with going back to the Democrats, I don't think it would have hurt them if they would have said, why not also do the emotional sweep? Especially when they saw the Republicans coming in there. I think they were just resting on the laurels. I think they were thinking, we have the vote, we're not even going to bother with it. And I think if they would have gave the other side of it, the fairness side of it, I don't think it would have hurt, and I think it would have made the battle a lot easier. But
what do you think? I mean, do you think that you would have changed your political mind? Do you think that you could have been swayed by something that you might have heard? What do you think?
your microphone.
I mean, I don't know.
So the question was, in case you didn't hear, was a really good question, is
Do you think? Sorry. Well, precisely how silly is that? Right. So
Yes.
Do you think that your political concern would have been assuaged by sway?
By sway?
so if and the thing is,